the cult of Neith, one deity that fits the bill perfectly as the ancient mother of crocodiles is Neith. Okay. She was self-created goddess of war and hunting, who was seen either the mother of the source behind. She's the mother or the source behind many of the Netjeru. Neith was one of the oldest Netjeru of Egypt. Okay, the oldest deities of Egypt, with several very ancient temples in the Western Delta, and which was her foremost region of veneration. Okay, so she was respected and venerated in the Nile Delta area up north. Okay, from the very earliest of times. Get this, one of the goddess Neith's principal links with the Fayum was that her name was Mahet Waret, which means the great primeval ocean or the great flood. Basically, they're saying this: she was the primordial waters of Nun. Yep. Go ahead and get your shovels out. I forgot to tell you, get something to write on, something to write with, because it's about to go down. Now, was part of that process. Okay, she was part of that cosmic slop, if you will, like in the days of George Clinton, okay, and Funkadelic, where they talked about cosmic slop. The primordial waters of Nun, right? The concept of Nun represents far more than a mere mythological abstraction. It is the fundamental substrate of existence, the infinite, the dark, and formless primordial ocean that predates all creation. They're saying she's that. You learn something new every day, right? And in this cosmology, the primordial waters existed in a state of complete undifferentiation. The Nun embodies the ultimate potential of universal creation and limitless, expansive, dark, turbulent waters that contain within themselves the seeds of all possible manifestation. In the most profound symbolic interpretation, Nun is not simply a physical space, but a metaphysical condition. It's not just a space, but it's a condition. Primordial ocean represents the complete absence of distinction, no boundaries, no forms, no differentiation between subject and object, between the potential and actual. It is a state of absolute unity where all possibilities coexist in a suspended, undetermined condition. They're saying Neith was this. Neith, in her form as Mahet Waret, presided over the primeval waters of creation, signified the night sky by the stream of stars making up the Milky Way. Yeah, so she was part of this, according to the ancient ancestors. We're talking about pre-dynastic periods now. We're talking about before the Old Kingdom. Yeah. And as you can see on this diagram, I'm sure somebody want to know, these are the three pyramids right here of Giza. This the Heru and Makhet. This is the Nile River right here. And in some sources, you see the Milky Way shooting straight up. And according to a lot of sources, the Heru and Makhet was built 10,500 years ago when the constellation of Leo was prominent. And of course, as you can see, the Orion's belt. Okay, so that's why we believe and understand that Kemetic culture and African culture is a lot older than what a lot of the people are saying. Okay, so Neith in her form is Mahet Waret, okay, and presided over the primeval waters. Okay, in addition, I'm reading out the book. In addition to the multitude of aspects I already mentioned, she was considered to be the mother of those snakes and crocodiles who are in the abyss. Okay, in the abyss. She bore the title the nurse of the crocodiles. Okay, and so she is shown embracing two crocodiles, and sometimes those two crocodiles represent the sun and the moon. Yeah. Now, the book of Fayum. Oh, I gotta hold on before I get to that book. Hold on, I'm gonna get to that book. I'm gonna get to that book in a second. Hold on. Now, one of the goddess Neith principal links of the Fayum was that she was the great primeval ocean. And in the book of Fayum, she's even recognized in their book. The Greco-Roman papyrus known as the Book of Fayum Mahat appears several times. Okay. Now, she's seen as the celestial cow. Some people would say, okay, it's very similar to Heteru, which is true, which is correct. Okay. But in the Fayum, we're talking about Neith was that celestial cow, right? Okay. And in the book of Fayum, she was probably part of the customs and cultures. And one representation shows her with her hands and arms raised, with twin streams of water pouring downward from her elbows. Okay, I don't know why there's water coming from our armpits, but they drew that. Okay, they decided to do that. Y'all help me out with that one. Why would they? I'm childish. I don't care. Why would they have water coming out of her armpits? I don't get it, but but it is what it is. All right, but now, so an expert in the Book of Fayum suspect that this symbolism relates to the manner of the Bar Yusuf. Okay, the canal splits apart just before it enters the Medet El Fayum, causing the surging of waters to flow away in separate directions. So, they're trying to be mature about it and say that it was a representation of the water splitting from the Fayum. Me, I'm childish. I'm like, did she have sweaty armpits? I'm just, I want to know. All right. But so in the book of Fayum, Mahetoaret is a key figure, right? And the net of Fayum, the presence of the goddess of the Netjeru forked tree in the papyrus text is to indicate that there's an ancient shrine associated in the Fayum. We already talked about the fact that the temple of Isis, the ancient temple of Aset, is built by the Sphinx, and according to record, that's what it is. Now they're saying that there's a presence of an ancient shrine in the Fayum. Okay, the existence of the Acacia of Net shrine in the Fayum makes it clear that the Netjeru, the goddess Net, must have been extremely important across the region, especially since she was the mother of Sobek. She is the mother of Sobek. And if you're looking at the picture, okay, you see her crown there with the arrow in her hand, and she is taller than Sobek, which means she is greater than Sobek. All right. Now, in the book of Fayum, the net is shown in association with a symbol, the forked acacia tree. See it? See the tree, the acacia, basically is another word for, that's the Egyptian version of the evergreen tree, right? It's always green, always blooming, all year round, right? That basically means eternal. Okay, so it's symbolic of resurrection or eternity. The split, get this, y'all, pay attention. The split in the tree might reflect how the Milky Way splits into two separate branches in the vicinity of the Cygnus constellation. Y'all, these people made a basic symbol and developed it to the point to where it is going, it's telling us about the stars. The split in the tree might reflect how the Milky Way splits into two separate branches. Wow. Wow. And just like the Dogon connection to Sirius, our Kemetic ancestors knew there was a split in the Milky Way. So they already knew that. You see that little divide right there. There's a split in the Milky Way. Before Europe came here, before telescopes and all this, they noticed that. Wow. And so, according to sources, the split in the Milky Way refers to several phenomena: a visible dark line or dark lane called the Great Rift, a broken section in the Sagittarius arm, or a proposed revision to the number of major spiral arms. Man, I'm going with the first one. They saw the dark lane called the Great Rift. They already knew there was a split in the Milky Way. They already knew that. And they showed it through this acacia tree right here. Wow. Don't forget to like and subscribe. But I've been reading this, and like I said, I'm learning something new every day. And to see that, It's not just the Dogon people that had deep knowledge of the stars. Of course, the people of Kemet did, and they showed it in the Meta Netjeru. They showed it in their language, right? So, who was the ancient mother of crocodiles? So that's the question. Who was the ancient mother of crocodiles? It was Neith. Neith was pictured as a woman nursing a baby crocodile, and she was addressed with the title Nurse of Crocodiles, reflecting the southern provincial mythology in Upper Egypt, that she served as the mother of the crocodile Netjeru or god Sobek. Now, there's some more about it though. There is some more about it. Should we go? We kind of tap dance with a little bit. We kind of touched on Neith a little bit. Should we go into further detail about this ancient Netjeru? Should we go into detail? I kind of honored some of the fans' requests. We kind of touched on a little bit, but should we go into detail? Should we get a little go a little deeper with that one? Y'all let me know. Let me see what yeah. So Library Without Borders said, yeah, I'm in him hat with the picture when I'm in him hat the third with him with his hairstyle. Yeah, he was rocking locks. He was wearing locks. So therefore, we know what race he was. Okay, stop playing games. All right. So should we go further with Neith, right? Yeah, if she is the ancient and prominent mode, saying yes. Okay, all right. Stay tuned for that. Now, and also, should we talk about or get into the book of Fayum? Okay, because that's still on the table. Okay, and I have that ready to roll too. Should we discuss the book of Fayum? Should we get into that? Should we get into details of that? Okay. And so, y'all, this is great stuff. This is an excellent read. Okay, as you say, I'm highlighting and everywhere, right? So it's great. So regicide, yeah. She was Sobek's mother. We need more information, King Cam. Oh man, they calling me to the carpet. We need more information. Okay, all right. Regicide. Now, the vengeance of Nitocris. All right, let's go back. Let's go back to Herodotus' original narrative. We already wrote out, we already dispelled the fact that Nitocris didn't build the third pyramid. We already dealt with that. But now we're talking about regicide and revenge, right? Okay. She wanted to avenge her brother, who was killed who was unalive by his subjects, who then gave her sovereignty, put many of the Egyptians to that good old swimming pool in the labyrinth. Then why would they have to be punished though? Okay, why would they have to be taken out? Okay, now some people would like to say that she's trying to take out those who was responsible for dealing with her stepbrother, right? I think this though, because because Neferu Ptah is gone. Amenemhat the fourth, the stepbrother is gone. I think she's trying to take out some people that may have known about her involvement with them being taken out. She's probably trying to do away with witnesses. So what do you think? Let's get into this conversation. All right. So what makes sense though, however, that if she wanted to use the death of her brother as an excuse to crack down on any persons seen as potential threat to her reign, in other words, those people put to death were not necessarily conspirators, but they liked her stepbrother. They didn't really care much for her or her how she handled business. So it kind of made some sense now, according to Herodotus, that make more sense with Sobekneferu blaming her brother's death on the closest allies, because all of them was team Amenemhat the fourth, team stepbrother, and not team Sobekneferu. So let's find out now. So was this the labyrinth that would be used by Sobekneferu later on? Was this the labyrinth? Because there are some by the Black Pyramid, there is a labyrinth design there. Miss Blue is saying she had to get them before they got her, but somebody got her though, because her reign was short. Her reign was short. Somebody got a hold of her. Because we got to deal with a ritual. We got to deal with that. Okay, so if Sobekneferu simply put people to death, then why would she then try to escape vengeance? Why would she then do that? Okay, the spacious underground chamber. Okay, we're going to talk about that in a second, though. All right, now the idea of constructing a spacious underground chamber to exact her vengeance can be shown to refer to only that of the labyrinth at Harawa, at least half of which is consisted of underground chamber. So half is above ground, but the rest is underground, right? And so for this will be the place, according to the Greeks, where the great feast happened, and she went on and open the floodgates on them. Okay. Now there's also, according to Herodotus, okay, there's also a double set of chambers, okay, 3,000 altogether, 1,500 above, and some underground. So we have half and half, right? We ourselves viewed those that were above ground and speak that of what we've seen. So Herodotus and some other Greek philosophers went to Kemet and they saw the labyrinth. They saw the above ground part. Okay. So the Egyptian wardens would by no means show the underground part. Okay. The burial, because now at that point that is seen as burial vaults. Okay, of the kings or the ancestors who first built the labyrinth. Okay, it was seen as a sacred space. The labyrinth, as we have seen, as commissioned by Amenemhat III and after completed by Sobekneferu, it therefore seems highly likely that the spacious underground chamber said to have been built by Nitocris is in fact an abstract memory of the labyrinth on underground chamber. So they're connecting that labyrinth to that story. Moreover, the fact that the spacious underground chamber in the story, the Nitocris story, would have become the final resting place of those who were drowned when the waters overcame them. Yeah. So the question is, was it regicide or fratricide? Yeah. Was it regicide or fratricide? To accuse Egypt's first female pharaoh of being complicit in regicide, which means that is the killing of a dynastic rival, okay, might seem off. It might seem off, right? And even fratricide, the killing of somebody's brother, might seem stuff of drama, but the way the Middle Kingdom has been rolling, I can't put nothing past them, because they've been getting real ignorant around here. Folk being unalive, folk being taken out, folk stepbrother taking folk place, and all this kind of stuff. Amenemhat, okay, according to Herodotus, okay, and I read this also. Manetho and Herodotus talked about the 12 dynasty kings that was taken out by his servants. Amenemhat the first. I told you, the Middle Kingdom was very shaky. Okay, and it started wrong. I just think it started wrong. Amenemhat the first, yeah, he or the second. Okay, we're not sure, but he ruled for 38 years, a long time, but then he was taken out by his own eunuchs. Wow, his people in his own camp took him out. This is crazy. Senuseret. Okay, in addition to Amenemhat the first, we have an apparent example of an attempted fratricide in the 12th dynasty with Senuseret. Okay, the third. Okay, it's said to have been he conquered a lot of nations and he expanded the kingdom. And on his return to Egypt, he reached a certain location out there called the Daphne Pelusium. this being a fortress town situated in northern part of the country. While there, according to Herodotus, it says that the Herodotus is getting this information from the priests of Memphis. So Herodotus is reciting the information that's told to him by the people of Kemet. Okay. While Senuseret III was there, okay, his brother, we were told his brother, to whom he had given Egypt in charge, invited him and his sons to a banquet, and then piled wood around the house and set it on fire. When Sesostris was aware of this, he took a council, one of which is so. Wow. So now so that, okay, went to a foreign location, and he basically was ambushed, okay? And his brother, whom he had given Egypt in charge, invited him and his sons to a banquet. It always involves food. Watch who you eat around. God, watch who you fellowship with. You understand me? Okay. It always involves a banquet or something like that. But they piled some wood around and set it on fire. When Sesostris was aware of this, he took counsel with his wife and brought that information to him. She counseled him. Okay. So since they plan like that, since they taking folk out and their sons, okay, take 2 of his sons and go ahead and make them into a bridge. You know, since you got to get back to the house, that's how we're going to do that. Make them into a human bridge. Okay. Again, we can't say this incident really occurred, but it's a lot going on in the Middle Kingdom. Okay, so it can't be too far-fetched to say that Sobekneferu and them engaged in this, right? Like I said, it can't be, they're not hotep all the time. They're not reading the book and coming forth by day all the time, right? So this kind of idea, Amenemhet's father, Senuseret the third, and the grandfather Sobekneferu, it was kind of in their DNA to take people out if it's going left, right? So regicide or fratricide. Okay, the final part of the narrative regarding the vengeance of Nitocris is highly enigmatic and far-reaching. He's kind of reaching, for it tells us that this was all the priest told of her, save that also that she had done this and cast herself into the chamber full of hot ashes, thereby to escape vengeance. Now, we dealt with the ancient mother crocodiles. We dealt with the cult of net, revenge, regicide. Hold on. What about this ritual that may have gone wrong? Did they put too much, or did they do too much? The chamber of ashes. We not done with that. All right. Now the death of Sobekneferu. How did she die for real? It's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things we know. We finding out that them 3 years was short and it was rough. So we're going to have a live series about that. The fall from grace. We're going to talk about some factions and what might have happened and what we know for sure. Right? We're going to deal with that real soon. And so Sobekneferu's drastic measures, okay, to avoid the fragmentation of the Kemetic society of the 2 factions. So she realized that the walls were basically closing in on her. The Egyptian nationalists, okay, who was kind of for her, but they kind of put her in place, all right? And then the supporters of Amenemhet, right? And so, as we've seen, Sobekneferu intended political and economic reforms probably involved a clampdown on the growing influence of the Western Asiatic population in the north of the country, something that is unlikely to have gone down well with some of Egyptian society. Okay, under such circumstances, okay, under such circumstances, therefore, it seems plausible that Sobekneferu was given an ultimatum by some influential people. According to Andrew Collins, Sobekneferu may have received an ultimatum: either you do this, or we're gonna have to deal with you. Yeah, it was done by her adversaries, either to stop what you're doing or pay the price. Yeah. Unwilling to bend to their demands and to be seen weak. Okay. She chose the latter. She chose that relaxation, right? And so, yeah, dealing with the secrets of the Netjeru, right? Now we're going to get into these chamber of secrets, right? According to classical writers, Cleopatra either allowed a snake to bite her or she took some kind of poison. Plutarch records that two slight pricks on her arm were afterward noted, and maybe that poison was hidden. And you know, of course, I got to say this by the way, Cleopatra still ain't her, but we're gonna use her as an example because you know, there's some sources that no snake was found. Okay, no snake was found by her, showing that. And so the means of her committing that ultimate act is unclear. It has been suggested that the introduction of a venomous snake into the story of Cleopatra was deliberate. For since the snake carried some kind of symbolic connotation and symbolic tone, it is further emphasized that the Roman opinion of that queen was little more than how do I say it? The people kind of even at that time saw her as an opportunist. All right. So the fact that she also remember that according to Collins, the fact that Cleopatra saw herself as the incarnation of Aset, the Egyptian nectar of magic and medicine. This could imply that the snake blamed for causing her death was a metaphor for a self-administration of the poison that took her out. Yeah. So she may have ingested some kind of poison. Okay. So this seems confirmed in the knowledge that in one ancient Egyptian legend, yeah, because remember, she did get, just like Herodotus got some information from the priest, Cleopatra got some information about our set from some of those priests, right? So this seems confirmed to the knowledge that in one ancient Egyptian legend, Aset manufactured a snake god out of dust, which is held together by the spit from Ra. So this reminds me of a story. It's story time. I love story time. The story of the name of Ra, or come on, Mo, the lost name. Yeah. We're gonna go ahead and get ready. Just sit back real quick. We're gonna talk about this, the story of the name of Ra, or the lost name. I'm doing all that talking. Y'all can't hear me. I'm about to get into story time and everything. All right. I guess I gotta sit up. All right. I'm back. All right. So here we go. Story time. As I was saying, now the majesty of Ra was the creator of heaven and earth, the gods of men and cattle of fire, and the breath of life. And he ruled over the gods of men. And Aset saw his might, the might that reached over heaven and earth, before which all Netjeru and men bowed. Okay. And she longed in her heart for that power. Aset wanted that power. And thereby she should be greater than the Netjeru and the ancestors and have dominion over men. Aset had aspirations, right? This is according to the story. There was but one way to obtain that power. One way to obtain that power, by the knowledge of his own name. Okay. So by the knowledge of his own name, Ra ruled, and none but himself knew that secret name. Have you heard like the story of Rumpelstiltskin? Okay, that's kind of a callback to that. Okay, so whosoever could learn the secret, that one, Netjeru or man, would belong the dominion over all the world, even over Ra himself, be in subjection. Jealously did Ra guard his secret. This was a secret. His own name was a secret. Nobody knew it and kept it ever in his heart, lest it would be taken from him and his power diminished. Every morning, Ra would come forth in his glory at the head of the train and from the horizon of the east, journeying across the sky. And in the evening, they would come in the horizon of the west. And the majesty of Ra sank his glory like sunset and lightened the thick darkness of the Duat. Okay, many times Ra came and made the journey so many times that now he was waxed old. He was an old man at this point. He was tired, right? Very aged was Ra, and saliva ran down from his mouth and fell upon the earth. And then Aset took earth and mixed the saliva, and she kneaded the clay. She mixed it and molded it and formed it into the shape of a snake, the shape of a great hooded cobra, that is the emblem of all Netjeru, the royal serpent, which is now upon the brow. Of course, we talked about Wadjet, okay, on the brow of the kings of Egypt. No charms or magic spells did she use, for in the snake was the divine substance of Ra himself. So she took the snake and laid it in the hidden path of Ra. She put it in the bushes, okay, the path in which he traveled, journeying from the eastern to the western horizon. Okay, so there's that sunboat that goes across the sky. We see those very images. Now, in the morning, came Ra and his train in their glory, journeying to the western horizon of heaven, where they entered the Duat and lightened the thick darkness, and the serpent shot out his pointed head with his shaped like dart and his fangs and bit Ra. That snake bit him. And the fire of his poison entered into him, for the divine substance was in the serpent. Okay, Ra cried out, and his cry rang across the heavens, from the eastern to the western horizon, across the earth, and the Netjeru and the ancestors was like they all heard this cry, and everybody who followed in his train, they asked him, "What's going on? What aileth thee? What aileth thee?" But Ra never he never answered a word. He was trembling, he was shaking. He couldn't say anything, but the poison spread through his body as the Nile River spreads over the land when the waters rise above the banks. So when he became calm, he called those that follow him. Okay, come to me, ye who I have created. I am hurt by a grievous thing. I'm in pain. I feel it through. I see it, but I don't see it. Okay, I didn't make this. This is a big problem. This is a big issue, and I know not who made this. Okay, never have I felt this pain like this. Never have I been in an injury worse than this. Who can hurt me? Okay, who can hurt me? For none know my secret name, that name which is spoken by my father and by my mother, and hidden in me, that none might work this witchcraft upon me. I come forth to look upon the world which I have made and have passed across the two lands, when something that I don't know of struck me. Is it fire? I don't know. Is it water? I don't know. All I know is I burn, I shiver, I'm cold, my limbs are shaking. Call the children of the Netjeru and who have the skill of healing. Call everybody who knows medicine. And so they who have the knowledge of magic, they whose powers reaches to the heavens. Come on, bring them in here, because I'm going through it, right? Then came all the Netjeru and the ancestors with weeping and mourning and lamentation. Their power was to no avail. Okay, again, they couldn't fix it. They couldn't fix it. For it is in divine substance was incorporated. With them came in Isis. Isis came in the mix. She's the healer and the mistress of magic, in whose mouth is the breath of life, whose words destroy the disease and awake the dead. So she came in there. We already know who made the snake, right? So she spoke to the majesty of Ra and said, "What is this? What's the problem? What's the problem?" What is this? Has a snake brought pain to thee? Has the creation of thine hand lifted his head against thee? Lo, she says, lo, I am overthrown by the might of my magic. I will drive it out. Okay, I will drive it out by means of thy glory. Then the majesty of Ra answered, I passed along a pointed path, and I passed between the two lands, and this snake bit me. Okay, now I'm colder than water, and I need some help. That's basically what he's saying. And Isis spoke again, and her voice was low and soothing. She said this, tell me your name. She says, tell me your name, O divine Father, thy true name, thy secret name, for only for he only can live who is called by his name. Then the majesty of Ra answered. He said, I am the maker of the heaven and earth. I am the establisher of the mountains. I'm the creator. I'm the maker of the secrets of two horizons. I'm the light and I'm the darkness. I'm all these things, right? I'm the creator of the living flame. But Isis said, I ain't trying to hear all that. I ain't trying to hear none of that. She said, everybody know that. Okay. And this is the name that all men know. He said, his true name, his secret name is still hidden. Okay. And the power of the poison has increased. She wanted to know his true name. After silence, she spoke again. Thy name, thy true name, thy secret name is not among these. Tell me your name, that the poison may come out. For only in that name you can be healed, right? So then the majesty of Ra cried out, said, come on, Isis, we got to have a meeting. We got to talk. Because, this pain is it's unbearable, right? And so he hid himself from everybody, okay, from his entourage, from his crew, and empty was the boat of the sun, empty was the great throne, and so it was just him, just Ra and Aset, right? So it says, when the name come forth from the heart of Ra to pass to the heart of Isis, the goddess spoke to Ra and said, bind thyself with an oath, O Ra, that thou wilt give thy two eyes, okay, to Horus, to my son. She not only wanted power for herself, she wanted her son, Haru, to have power. Now, the two eyes of Ra are the sun and the moon, okay, and all men can call them the eyes of Horus to this day. But now, this was the name, okay? How was that name given? How was that name given? This is what he did. He went to her, okay, and basically he told her in a whisper from mouth to ear. He told her secretly. No, and the thing is, we all know the other names, but that he told it at a low voice, at a low whisper that nobody can hear it. Only Aset knows that name, that word of power. And so what happened, this is the name was taken from him, given to Isis. She, the great enchantress, cried aloud with the word of power, which the name is still unknown, right? But she knew it. The poison obeyed, and Ra was healed by the might of his own name. And Isis, yeah, mouth to ear, yeah. And Isis, the great one, mistress of the Netjeru, mistress of magic, she's a skillful healer, and she was able to heal Ra. Okay. Now, why did I say all that? Okay. Yeah, where's Brother Ferguson when you need him, right? Yeah. So that name was secret. Okay. But it reminds me of something else. Okay. The land, shout out to this story, this breakdown of the story. Shout out to the land of Cam, the ancestral way. He broke the story down with this illustration. Check this out. Now we have a diagram that they made. Kefra is the sunrise, right? Ra at the noon, Atun at sunset, which is death, and Amun Ra, that hidden space, that hidden name is in that place. So we have Zephyra, okay, Kefra at dawn, created at dawn, midday sun, Ra at midday, Ra Atun at sunset, and then at the midnight sun. Okay. Now, for people who try to disconnect the Congo from Kemet, here is the Bakongo cosmogram. Shout out to Library Without Borders. She kind of asked the question, and here it is. All right. So this is the Bakongo cosmogram. Okay. Shout out to the family Congo. Okay. Kala, which is fire, Tukala, which is earth, okay, Lumvimba, which is water, and Musoni, which is air. But as you notice, this is a cycle: birth, maturity, death, and conception. Above ground, that is the physical world, the Nseke, the physical world, and then the Mpemba, the ancestral plane. All right, so now we see there is a connection between Kemet and Congo. Okay, now we see the one we have the on above ground, which is the physical plane, and then the spiritual plane there. Okay, yeah, it gets a little different around here. We kind of go in detail. So, but for more of that, check out Asa Imhotep. He's a linguist. He breaks that down. And shout out to the land of Cam, the ancestral way, for the diagram and the knowledge. Check them out when you guys get a chance. Yeah. And so the question was this: is there a cultural connection between Congo and Kemet or the Nile Valley? Library Without Borders. The short answer is yes. But the long answer, we'll go into details at another time. But you can't unsee that. You can't, Kemet and Congo, okay? They came for the foothills of the mountains of the moon. That is from the south, right? And this is a Central African king that looks very similar to Asar. See what I'm saying? Now, remember, according to classical writers, Cleopatra either allowed a snake to bite her or she took the poison, right? And remember, Sobekneferu was a priestess. Scholars observe she might have received wisdom and counsel from the Netjeru to help rule according to Ma'at, right? Now, so if Cleopatra was able to escape a terrible fate at the hands of Octavian by administering a poison into her body, then could Sobekneferu have departed this world in a similar fashion? So could she have went the same route? Now, did Sobekneferu intend on undergoing this process? Was it foul play, though? Did an ancient ritual go wrong? We still got questions. We still got to deal with that. Did it go wrong? Okay. Now, ritual death and the chamber of hot ashes. Yeah, yes, sir. In the opinion of Andrew Collins, the author, the ritual chamber is a kind of is alluded to a secret space. Okay. The ritual chamber, according to Herodotus' statement about the manner in which Nitocris is able to commit that permanent relaxation with the hot ashes or embers responsible for the female sovereign's unaliving, being a reference to intoxicating incense, right? In the opinion of the author, okay, incense is a kind of this kind could well be featured in the rituals that took place in Egyptian initiations. Arguably, the most famous Adison, a classical tradition, was one located within the temple of Apollo in Delphi in Greece. Right, these gases or fumes are thought to have created an intoxicating effect that enabled the prophetess or the initiate to communicate with the ancestor and the Netjeru. Right, so there was poisons in Egypt. Okay, there was poisons. What incense or substances might have served a similar function in the adulta of ancient Egypt is unclear. We don't know. We don't know exactly, but possibly they could have included psychotropic, that is, psychoactive or hallucinations inducing plants. Okay, such as opium, poppy, henbane. Okay, or even in this mixture. Okay, opium, henbane, and hellebore, along with another highly toxic plant named hemlock. They can mix some plants. Okay, they can mix some stuff and put it together, because I know we talked about the lotus plant, okay, being part of the process, but these plants are also part of that process. Okay, there's a thing called like the datura or the thorn apple. Okay, datura grows wild in Egypt, according to British Egyptologist Alfred Lucas in his article Poets of Ancient Egypt. It is present in the country. Okay, and so it is this kind of thing, they can grind it down, and they can burn it to where it produces smoke. Okay, a light inhalation of that can release some asthma. Okay, this shows how the toxins from Netjeru plant can be easily absorbed into the lungs through the exposure of the smoke, but too much can be too much. Okay, but basically ingesting large quantities of this kind of plant is lethal. Okay, just like anything, most of the plants can either hurt you or heal you, right? So yeah, this is that can be a possibility. So now this kind of reminds me, dealing with the ritual death. Okay, they talked about how they would ingest certain things like opium and so on and other things, and to put them in that kind of state of consciousness. This reminds me of that, of course, the story of the Black Panther, where he went into the ancestral plane by ingesting that heart-shaped herb. Okay, where did he go? He went to the ancestral plane. Now, most initiations involve some kind of symbolic death. Okay, it involved you changing or going from one point to the next, right? So, and these initiation processes in ancient Kemet, in Greece, would have been able to bring about an altered state of consciousness, whereby there was an entry into like the spirit world, which become relatively easy, especially for an initiate. And so, of course, we know in the story of the Black Panther, that's where he went. Okay. And so I would like to believe that a lot of these processes are very similar. So it's interesting to note that the voluntary death was an important aspect of the cult of Aset, which initiates willingly for foregoing their mortal lives, and they'll try to be reconnected to Aset. Now, but did Sobekneferu intend on undergoing this process? Okay, was it foul play? Was it did she intend on doing it? She was a priestess already. Did they add too much? Okay, or was there some enemies in that camp that laced that added a little bit more of that stuff, right? So think about this.